knowledge of good and bad, or right and wrong, is actually evidence of God, and it's actually quite simple. So, everyone has a sense of right and wrong, good and bad. Certain things we just instinctively, intuitively know that it's wrong, it's bad. Okay? So, in the same way, if you have any form of legislation or policy, so you have things that are legal and illegal, so right and wrong, good and bad, legal and illegal, in an official system, right? So, in the same way, if you just feel you know something's wrong or bad, you can also know that something is illegal. Okay? You can know that something's illegal because there's some policy or legislation in place that says that a thing's illegal, because there's a government or some type of governing official body which has created the legislation or policy. Okay? So, if there's laws, if there's things which are legal and illegal, that means there's some governing body which created the laws. Otherwise, nothing could be legal or illegal, because there'd be no laws, because there's no one to create the laws to say that something's legal or illegal. So, if there was no God, there'd be no law, no moral law, so there'd be no sense of right and wrong, or good and bad. Now, atheists, or people who call themselves atheists, often get confused with the subject of morality, right? Of good and bad, right and wrong, when it's actually really simple. But they get confused because they create this abstraction, right? So they create this false idea, this abstraction, called subjective morality. Where basically they think that they can have their own right and wrong, their own version of good and bad, which is subjective to them as an individual. They believe that their sense, their instinct of just knowing what's right and wrong, good and bad, having a natural feeling of good and bad, they believe that that makes it, or that's somehow evidence to them that there isn't a God, and they just have a sense of right and wrong from themselves. Okay? But we can understand that this doesn't actually make sense. And again, it's really simple, because in the same way, imagine having your own opinion of what's legal and illegal. If every person just has their own individual opinion of what's legal and illegal, alright, then there's no actual legal and illegal. Alright? If there's no law, you can't break the law. So you can't do anything illegal. Right? So if there's no morality, if there's no objective morality, no law, right, moral law, then you can't do anything good or bad. So if there's no like judicial law, you can't do anything legal or illegal, because there's no law to break. So there's nothing illegal or illegal. And if there's no moral law, there's no morality to break, there's no good or bad. But everyone, even people who are atheists, who say they don't believe in God, right, and don't believe in objective moral law, still claim to have a sense of right and wrong, good and bad, and then they just call it subjective morality. But again, it doesn't make any sense. It's like saying subjective law, subjective legality. Like, there's no subjective nature. It's not an opinion if something's legal or illegal, if it's a clearly written law that says something is illegal. It's illegal because it's written in the law. And if it's written in law, it means someone had to write it. So it's actually that simple. So another simple argument you can point out, and irony, is that someone who claims to believe in what they call subjective morality, which again doesn't actually exist, they have no argument against, like, severe unjust acts, immoral, evil acts, right? They have no justification or argument against evil. So they actually claim and imply that their stance, because they don't believe in an objective morality, alright? So if they claim not to believe in God, they're claiming to not believe in objective morality as well, alright? Because you can't have one without the other. But if they're making this claim, they're essentially stating that they believe, because they think morality is subjective, that it's just a person's individual opinion. So there's no such thing as actual evil, right? Because if someone's opinion is that that evil act is good, it's a moral good in their subjective morality, it's good for them, well then that makes it good for that person. Doesn't matter what the act is, doesn't matter how wicked or evil it is, what, the most evil thing you could possibly imagine, alright? And a person who believes in subjective morality believes that that's not evil and it's okay, right? So the most evil thing you can possibly imagine, the most wicked, vile, evil, disgusting thing you can possibly, the worst act ever you can possibly imagine. People who believe in subjective morality believe that that act is perfectly okay. It's not bad, it's not evil. It might be inconvenient, but it's not bad. Which actually contradicts their own position, that where they claim that they have a sense, their own personal sense of good and bad, right and wrong. So out one side of their mouth they're saying that they claim to have their own personal subjective morality of good and bad, right and wrong. Okay? And that's how they can explain that obviously we do have that natural instinct and feeling that there are things that are good, there are things that are bad, there are things that are righteous, there are things that are evil, there are things that are correct, there are things that are wrong, morally. Right? They try to explain away that natural feeling that everyone has as their supposed subjective morality. But out the other side of their mouth, they're saying that they have a subjective morality, so all morality is just opinion. So there actually isn't good or bad, right or wrong. It's just your opinion. Just depends how you happen to feel about it. So they basically just deny the fact that they have a sense of right and wrong, pretend like they don't have to think about that they've got this natural instinct that they can't deny, that they do feel that there is such thing as morality. There is such thing as good and bad, right and wrong. Right? They can't deny that they have that feeling. So they just call it subjective morality, say it's just their opinion, even though that contradicts what they're saying, because an opinion can't be right or wrong if it's just an opinion. It's just an opinion. It's just a feeling. It's a preference. It's like, do you prefer strawberry ice cream or chocolate ice cream? It's not good or bad. It's not evil or righteous if you prefer strawberry ice cream or chocolate ice cream. It's just an opinion. It's a preference. So that's what they're calling that choice, right? Of I don't, because they don't believe, it's like, say they don't want to get mugged. They're like, oh, obviously I don't want people to just like bash me in the street and take all my property. I don't think that's good, quote unquote good. Why? Because they just, being mugged in the street, bashed and all their shit stolen is strawberry ice cream, and not being bashed and having all their shit stolen is chocolate ice cream, and they just prefer chocolate ice cream. It's not because it's good or right or better, it's just their opinion. It's subjective, they claim. So they're saying that their choice to do good to others or to have good done to them isn't actually good. It's just their preference. It's just that's the flavor they prefer. And then they try to call their choice of different flavors, like they prefer chocolate ice cream over strawberry ice cream. They try to say, well, see, that's our subjective morality. See, that's my good. Chocolate ice cream is good. Strawberry ice cream's bad. So that explains away how I like naturally feel that certain things are good and bad, like, and innocent beings shouldn't be harmed. I feel like that's bad, that's wrong. Innocent beings shouldn't be harmed and mistreated. But I'm just going to pretend like I don't actually have that feeling, and it's just like I prefer chocolate ice cream. Like, it's just a flavor I like. I just like the flavor of innocent beings not being harmed. It's not that if they get harmed, it's actually bad. Like, so when you actually like break this down, and then you put it to somebody who says they believe in subjective morality, and you say to them, well, if this is the case, then it's just subjective. It's an opinion, subjective. It's a preference, like a flavor you prefer. You're saying then that you don't actually think that rape or murder is bad. You just don't like that flavor. It's not bad, but it's actually acceptable behavior. And for some people it's good because that's their flavor. So it's actually good for certain people if that's what they like. That's the flavor of ice cream they like. They want to rape people and murder innocent people and rob people. That's the flavor they like, so then it's good. And then they'll be like, oh, no, I'm not saying rape's good. I'm not saying murder's good. No. Of course that's bad. Of course it's bad. And you're like, what do you mean it's bad? You just said you don't believe in good and bad. You just have preferences that are subjective opinions. So that means you believe that rape and murder is good for people who have that as their preference, because it's a subjective opinion. And your opinion can't be any more correct than their opinion, because it's subjective. It's just based on how you feel. And then they either run away, have a hissy fit and run away, or they actually like stop and think and they're like, whoa, wait up, yeah. Obviously, morality can't be subjective because that's just opinions, that's feelings, that's not morality, that's not good and bad. Again, it's really simple. So you can't just feel like something's legal or illegal. I just feel like today I feel like this is legal, so I can do this. And if anyone complains, well, they're just being silly because they don't understand that legality is just subjective. It's just my opinion and how I feel at the time. Like, obviously, that doesn't make any sense. So, something being right and wrong, moral or immoral, legal or illegal, can't be based on your feeling at the time. It's got to have an objective standard that's been put in place by some form of authority. So, that means, really, everybody knows, people are only kidding themselves if they say otherwise. Really, everyone knows that morality is objective. There is such thing as good and bad. Certain things are wrong. We know this. Alright? We can all just agree. We all know. If we're not trying to act smart and trying to deny God or whatever, we can just accept and agree. Yes, there are things in this universe, and we all know in our hearts, even children, right? Children just naturally know. Nobody had to teach us. We were just born knowing in our hearts that there's certain things that are right, and we feel good when we see these things and we do these things, and there's certain things that are bad and wrong, and we feel bad if we see these things or do these things. Unless we become wicked, evil people. But everyone starts off pretty decent, pure and innocent as a child, knowing the difference between right and wrong in their heart, knowing that there is such thing as good and bad. Alright? So that means there has to be a God who determines what's good and what's bad. Just like if there's laws, you can't have laws, right, unless someone wrote the legislation and policies in some form of governing body. Obviously. Otherwise there's no laws because nobody's there to write them. So we know in our heart, everyone knows, even children, that there is good, there is bad, there's right, there's wrong. So there's laws of morality written onto our hearts and into existence. Policy and legislation written into our hearts and existence on the moral laws of what's right and wrong, good and bad. So that means just because we can feel that there's difference between good and bad, that itself is evidence of God. One true God that created all things and created a moral, legal system, a law, alright, and wrote it on our hearts, actually wrote the legislation and the policy, the laws on our hearts, so even children know that there's right and wrong, there's good and bad. And it's not someone's opinion. If something's bad, it's bad. It's not an opinion if something's good. If it's good, it's good. And everyone knows in their heart that it's good. So, it's obvious that God's real. You can't deny God. The only way you can even possibly try to deny God would first, it's even easier to prove God. It's just like open your eyes and the sun comes up and you can look around and there's birds flying around in the sky and there's a whole creation, a whole universe that's been created. So just opening your eyes and being awake, boom, that's evidence God exists. Just existence itself is evidence of God. Otherwise there'd be nothing. If there was no God, there'd just be nothing. But you have life. You wake up, so that means God must be real. It's that simple. But we can even just know, because there's good and bad, there's right and wrong, that God must exist as well. Because otherwise, who made the law? Who wrote the legislation? Who's the governing body that made the rules that says that certain things are good and certain things are bad? Because again, it can't be an opinion, because then it wouldn't be good and bad, it'd just be an opinion. So it can't be subjective, and we all know that there is right and wrong. There is good and bad. So we all know God. It's just, do we want to be rebels and deny God or disobey God, or do we want to be obedient children and actually respect our Creator?